Overtime, sponsored by Lexus.
On a Tuesday, we always put in a little overtime. Welcome to the Fox8 Overtime. Chris Hagan, Garland Gillen, I'm Juan Kincaid. Everybody recovered in the Monday night game yet?
I got a few hours of sleep.
Oh my goodness, what a wild weekend between LSU and the Saints, man. It's just nonstop excitement, man. I don't know if my heart can take it. I'm 42 years old.
Yeah, fun game to watch. Let's get you right to the big board. A lot to get to, and a lot of it, obviously, about the Saints. First up on that Saints step up late. Thank you, Will Lutz. Black and gold defense delayed arrival. That's okay. And they did pass their first test, that being the LSU Tigers with their win at the University of Texas. We're going to begin, of course, with some late-night heroics inside the Superdome. Saints and Texans went back and forth late in the fourth quarter, with the Saints pulling it out 30-28 thanks to Will Lutz and that 58-yard field goal. A career long for him, by the way. Good to see, though, that they can win it late, but they never should have been in this position in the first place.
No, they shouldn't have been in that position. You don't want to see them go, or the Texans go 2 plays right down the field to Hopkins, and then Kenny Stills,
of all people,
nearly had his revenge game. So no, it shouldn't have been that close. But look, that's what championship teams, championship caliber teams are able to do. They're able to pull games out against all odds. For the longest time, I really, to be honest with you, I had a tweet drafted up, just ready to slam that ending. And I was like, let me not send that out until it goes final, and I'm glad I didn't, because I would have gotten slammed. But no, good win for the Saints, able to pull it out late.
Yeah, pretty scary for the defense to give up a touchdown in 13 seconds. But man, Breeze and them came back. They made it. I can't believe this is week one of the after what happened last year to end the season and the start this season with this game. It's been a wild ride for Saints fans there, and you know what? It's just going to get wilder with the Rams and the Seahawks in the upcoming weeks.
And the cool thing, we got a little bit of information about how this offense is going to look. We didn't see them hardly at all in the preseason. That one game against the Jets, the one series, they looked great, the first team offense. But we got a sense of what this offense can do once they got into a bit of a rhythm. Aside from the early pick from Drew Brees in the red zone, all overall, a pretty good showing by this offense.
Yeah, they moved the ball well. They just didn't finish like they should have early. But we saw what we expected, I think, from the playmakers getting involved. On third downs, it was Michael Thomas, it was Alvin Kamara, and it was the new addition of Jared Cook. They run some of those familiar quick out routes that if the defense is going to give it to them, they'll take them. Yeah. If not, they'll look elsewhere. But they looked good, and honestly, I would say there is more to see, obviously, with this offense. Guy like that, Latavius Murray, he makes the most of his 6 carries, takes that one 30 yards to the end zone. I think he's a guy that we're going to see more of because he can run really well. It's just the way that Monday night's game went. The Saints were playing in a must-score-now mode. Yeah. I think when they're playing with a lead, you'll see more Murray.
Yeah, Juan, you saw a lot of rust from this team, okay? You could tell Drew wanted to play a little more in that Jets game, the third game of the preseason. So it took a full 2 quarters into the third quarter to knock off that rust. So this is like a 5th preseason game for the Saints. And luckily for their sake, they passed the test, because next week it's not going to be as forgiving on the road playing against a tough team that made the Super Bowl last year.
We saw an offense that has a ton of options on offense, Garland. I mean, the receiving threats, obviously Thomas and Ginn both go for over 100 yards, and Ginn has the biggest catch of the game, that 9-yard up and back before the field goal kick to win it. It seems like that's going to be the Saints' approach this year, in that we know Michael Thomas is going to be option A. We think Jared Cook might be option B, but if he's not, there's a bunch of other guys that can contribute on this offense. We don't need other guys getting 100 yards back to back to back. We need guys that can contribute and can be a constant threat.
And you saw Traquan Smith had a huge touchdown catch in this game. We expect to see a lot of him in year 2 in the black and gold there. He had a big catch last year, obviously, when Drew broke passing record. But you're right. You know what you're going to get out of these main guys with Kamara and with Cook. I can't wait to see. We saw it in training camp that Drew and Jared are on the same page, but there's still some work to be done between those two. I can't wait to see as the season rolls on that those 2 guys are gonna start tearing up the NFL.
Should be pretty special.
Yeah, I think Ted Ginn last night, 7 for 7 on targets and receptions, caught them all, 101 yards. Look, it's not necessarily going to be games like that every week for Ted Ginn or touchdown passes every week from Traquan Smith. Like Garland mentioned, it's Kamara It's Thomas. It's probably Jared Cook that'll see more of the targets. But when those targets do go to Ginn, when they do go to Smith, when they go to anyone else, Latavius Murray, whoever it may be, you got to catch him. You got to be able to make plays. You have to be relied upon. And that's what we saw last night. And we talked about it a little bit on the Black and Gold review. Having the veterans of Breeze and Ginn who've seen a ton of football, even a guy like Michael Thomas who's seen a lot of football now going into his 4th season, having those guys in that veteran situation to know to catch the ball, to get down right away, to find the ref, to be able to save every single second that the Saints needed to win this game, that's huge, and that's what this team's going to be asked to do. And it's something when we look at a roster on paper, we're looking for speed and youth and playmaking ability and stats and numbers and all this stuff. But I think a reason the Saints are a Super Bowl favorite is because of the experience they have, along with all the things I just mentioned.
About 15 seconds apiece. Are you excited about how they used and utilized Murray and Kamara?
Yeah, this is good. I think this is going to work out. I know that Mark Ingram got a touchdown for the Ravens there, and people already started to worry that that was a bad move to get rid of him. Murray looks great in this offense, and Kamara, Chris and I talked about a moment ago, he's right there with Saquon Barkley as one of the best running backs in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the thing that I look for is being able to limit Kamara's touches and not lose effectiveness. Kamara had 20 touches. Murray probably will have more in games to come, but the key is not wearing Kamara out.
I agree. All right, coming up on Overtime, better late than never for the Saints defense. We'll take a look back on what went right and what went wrong on that side of the ball. And also still to come, LSU's statement win means the Tigers are being talked about as title contenders. Is the win over Texas enough to test to earn the high praise? And of course, Saints fans who want to see their team spirit on television can head to the Final Play app, submit a picture, just click on the menu, scroll down to submit your Saints picks page. And from there, all you got to do is follow directions. Tune in throughout the season to see your Who Dat passion on display.
Lexus in New Orleans. You're watching Fox 8 Overtime, sponsored by Lexus.
And we're back here on Overtime. We're going to go on the other side of the ball with the Saints and talk about that Saints defense, which left a troubling, lasting impression in the Dome last night. We're glad Will Lutz was good from 58 yards out, but that should have never been needed after the Saints had a late 6-point lead. Deshaun Watson getting the Texans into the end zone with just 2 throws, covering 75 yards, raised the red flag with his secondary. And to me, that unit, especially the corners, still have a ways to go. But that, to me, seemed like the area was less of a question mark with this defense. We were more focused, at least I was, pregame, about the front 4.
Yeah, it's tough, man. That last drive from the Texans, that 2 plays, 75 yards, before that, they held Deshaun Watson under 200 yards of offense, certainly better than they've done in some of their previous season openers when they're easily giving up more than 300 yards in each of those games. I thought they played moderately well considering you're going up against DeAndre Hopkins, probably the best receiver in the league, and a gamer like Deshaun Watson who can, make a lot of things happen with his legs. That last drive, it's very concerning. It absolutely can't happen. I'm not going to be one of these people who goes on and torches and bashes the secondary right now. Outside of that drive, I wasn't too upset because you're going to find a lot of secondaries, a lot of teams that get torched by the Texans worse than the Saints did last night.
Yeah, I will say this one. The thing that's most worrisome with this defense is their 2-minute defense, okay? If you want to go back to the Philadelphia Eagles game last year in the playoffs, if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't drop that pass and Saints intercept it, they're in big trouble in that game. The next week, after the Nolan no call, they still let Jared Goff go down, get a field goal, take him over 10, they beat him. This week, they give up a touchdown to Watson. This is very worrisome for them. They need to clean up this 2-minute defense there because in the first half, it hit them again, too. That's one thing. I mean, Sean Payton was given a ton of glares at Dennis Allen for good reason. They need to clean that up. Yeah, they need to clean that up.
No doubt. And one thing that seems to be a concern to me is that teams are recognizing when P.J. Williams is on the field. He's a great cornerback when we're talking 10 yards, 15 yards and in. But teams recognize he lacks the speed to cover receivers deep. Might this be a blueprint for teams going forward?
It's tough, man. I mean, I think when you're calling plays and you're getting the look you want, you take advantage of it. With Deshaun Watson, the Saints were most effective against him when they were able to get quick pressure on him. And so when you're bringing a blitz and you leave PJ out there against a guy with burners like Will Fuller, not just a tough matchup for PJ, but probably for anybody with the speed that he possesses, that's going to be a tough play. You don't want to see the penalties. You don't want to see him get beat like he did. But again, That's a position, it gets exposed more than anything else. You talk about it more than anything else because it's on display more than anything else.
Time.
PJ and this defense will have their day. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm just going to sit up here and defend the defense, but I mean, for individual plays, we can't dog them for individual plays every single time it happens because it's an exposed position.
You're right. As a whole, though, Garland, you got to be happy with what this defense did. We talked about being able to contain Deshaun Watson, get pressure on him. They sack him 6 times. They pick him off in the fourth quarter. I mean, late in the second half. I mean, it's a good performance overall by this defense, minus what happened in the final minute of the game.
Yeah, one. They're without 3 defensive linemen that would be in that rotation. Sheldon Rankins maybe come back week 3 or 4. David Onyemata will be back this week after a 1-game suspension. Mario Edwards was inactive for this game. For them to get that kind of work with Shai Tuttle, an undrafted rookie, starting for this team, you got to be impressed. Deshaun Watson's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but the next few weeks they're going to face it the same way. I know I keep saying the next few weeks, but they just got a monster schedule coming up.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it there with the Saints. Up next, the visit to LSU will be in order after the Tigers silence some of their critics with their big win at Texas on Saturday. Stay with us.
Overtime, sponsored by Lexus.
And we're going to switch some gears here on Overtime, talking about college football and those LSU Tigers who raised plenty of eyebrows with an impressive win at Texas on Saturday. Quarterback Joe Burrow was fantastic again, 471 yards passing, 4 more touchdowns, and the Tigers had 3 different receivers with over 100 receiving yards. Certainly the continuation of a coming out party for this offense. But Chris, I'm thinking we needed to see this kind of output again, but against this kind of opponent. You agree?
Yeah, I mean, this was the one to sell you on it. This was the one where they absolutely had to have it. Can you imagine a scenario where they didn't have this offense in place and face Texas and weren't able to get off the field like they were? I mean, this was huge for the Tigers and the execution, not only with the big play, the 61-yarder, the Jordan Jefferson that we love to talk about, but inside the red zone. This team is 13 for 13 right now, one of the best in college football. Finding the end zone on 75% of trips to the red zone. That is a big step up from a year ago where they were about 51%. So Joe Brady is the hottest name in college football right now for a reason, because he's got this offense popping.
It was a road game at Texas. I felt like LSU was part of the Big 12, okay? There was like no defense in the game. It was just straight up tossing the ball around the yard. But we'll say this for both defenses, okay? Joe Burrow and Sam Ehlinger are 2 of the best quarterbacks in America, okay? So I'm not going to blame Dan Marino and his defense. They're going to clean this up, okay? They're not facing another quarterback like that until Tua in November, okay? Felipe Franks is not going to do that to LSU's defense. Bo Nix isn't doing that to this defense there. So I'm going to give David Aranda and them a pass this week because it was it got into becoming a shootout, okay? And that happens.
Something we're not used to seeing with LSU football for a long, long time is having options at receiver, of all things. We always had the running back options, but options at receiver is a crazy thing.
So I would argue that they've had the options,
but nobody to get the ball to them.
They haven't had the quarterback to get it there.
Well played,
and that's why I liked LSU in this game. I had the stat on the podcast the other day. If you look at, according to Rivals, over the last 5 years, LSU ranked 5 in terms of their cumulative recruiting classes to Texas's 16, meaning LSU has had the athletes all over the roster. We've seen it on the defense. We've seen it at running back. Technically, it's been there at receiver. We just haven't been able to see it. So now that they have the quarterback to get it there, it's like, they have been doing a good job recruiting receivers. They got Terrace Marshall and Jamar Chase in that same class. They got Justin Jefferson, and he's really developed. So, I am not surprised because they finally got the quarterback.
Is it time to start talking Burrow for Heisman? Is it too early for that?
No, I think he's in that conversation. And the next few weeks, he's going to start tearing it up.
Okay.
They're going to destroy Northwestern State's defense. Vanderbilt's 0-2 right now. They're going to have a bye this week, Vandy, so they're going to face LSU going 0-2. Then you got Utah State, who can put up some points. That might get out to like a shootout also. He's going to start rolling the points up there. No one's really separated himself. 2 is trashing 2 garbage teams. Trevor Lawrence has had a rough start to the season. I know Jalen Hurts went off against Houston, but that's one of the lesser defenses in the American. So no one's really set themselves apart yet. So Burrow is in that mix, and Burrow was on national television doing it against a top 10 team. But you're going to have some other matchups coming up soon where some of those guys can show off what they got.
Chris, the defense gives up 500-plus yards against Texas. You're not concerned about it, though?
No. I think there are a lot of factors that go into it, the heat, the cramping, et cetera. The fact that LSU's offense scores so quickly that you're not having a ton of time to rest. And like Garland said, this is a really good Texas offense. And it's for both defenses. Like you said, we're just not conditioned recently to seeing Texas be this good, and we're not conditioned to seeing LSU's offense play this well. But both of these offenses are really quality. They're going to go out and torch some more teams. Not overly concerned about the defense. They will have better days when they get out there. And look, another thing I said on the podcast, they made the plays they needed to make. They had the 2 4th-and-goal stops. They had a couple sacks that got LSU the ball back. They held them to a field goal late in the 4th quarter. They did enough.
Bottom line, they have too many good players on this defense for Dave Aranda to be scratching his head after 2 weeks of play.
And Derek Stingley's a true freshman. He was targeted 6 times.
He's a true baller.
And didn't give up 1 catch, okay? He is, we've already it's already Stingley Island, okay? They're not even going at him anymore, okay? Don't even go his way. And so you got NFL players all over the defense there. Now we'll say this, they're gonna have some injury issues going forward there with Glenn Logan, Rashard Lawrence. You don't know how long they're gonna be out for, but they were in heavily taped ankles at the end of the contest against Texas.
Too soon to be talking about national championship picture with this team, Chris?
Not at all. I think given what we have seen so far and how this offense has performed so far, why shouldn't they beat everyone going into Tuscaloosa? Then it gets a little more serious.
Juan, I've been saying it since June, July.
Here we go.
11-1, 11-1, and you know what? The way this offense is going, we gonna see in November, okay? I know there's a lot of games to be
trap every year.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of games before then, but man, they're not at Alabama level yet, but they got some. Joe Brady and Steve Insmee are gonna work this, man, but they're getting there. They're getting there. They got 2 more months to figure this out, okay?
Okay, glad to see where you stand on it, G. Thanks a lot. All right, coming up, from a toxic environment to a tough job to a terrible, terrible example. Everyone gets a final say.
Sponsored by Lexus.
We're in the home stretch of Fox 8 Overtime, which means a quick look at our brand new Fox 8 Big 8 poll. John Curtis still on top, followed by Carr, Rummel Raiders, and of course, the Warren Easton Eagles there at number 4. Garland, your thoughts on that top 4?
John Curtis, Edna Carr might be the game of the year, and it happened in week 1. Curtis and Carr will probably both be in a state championship game, and they'll probably both win it. Those teams are fantastic.
And 4 through 8 has Destrehan, St. Aug, Lakeshore, and Jesuit at number 8. Chris, pretty good 4 through 8 there.
Impressed by Lakeshore. They put up big offensive numbers. Players come and go. That Lakeshore offense still at it.
And speaking of the Raiders, they'll be a part of our Fox 8 big game of the week. A South Shore, North Shore battle against Slidell. Ground should be an interesting matchup.
Oh, no doubt. Chris Hagan's alma mater looking good with Harlan Dixon on offense. Boom. They're going to run into a buzzsaw. Rummel's defense gave up 3 points against Charlotte Catholic. They got a ton of seniors on that team. And on the offensive side, Kyle Wickersham, Coy Moore, they got some ballers on both sides of the ball. This is going to be a fantastic matchup in week 2.
On the North Shore. Good game to look forward to. All right, now time now for everyone's favorite part of the show, our final say. We know who leads us off. Chris Hagan, do the honors.
That's right. The Miami Dolphins are in a particularly tough place with the franchise, fans, and most important, the players. After Sunday's 59-10 loss to the Ravens, Pro Football Talk reported that multiple players contacted their agents and said they wanted to be traded. Now, while a 49-point loss is extreme and a big hit to confidence to start the season, for players to be already looking for an exit means there's a bigger problem. That problem could be the Dolphins' apparent plan to tank, to lose on purpose to secure a better draft pick. Given their now gutted roster after some preseason trades, they probably don't have to try to lose that hard at all. But either way, if that's the case, good luck trying to keep that locker room happy, full of guys who don't want their professional years wasted. And good luck to head coach Brian Flores. They'll never admit to tanking, but whatever comes this season, that will be on his resume. And that's not how you want to start your first head coaching job. If the Dolphins are indeed tanking, shame on them.
The no call was an absolute disaster for NFL referees, and last night wasn't any better for the Zebras. The refs admitted they botched the end of the second quarter, robbing the Saints of 25 seconds of game time. With all the mistakes made by the refs on the procedures, it forced the Saints to miss a field goal from an undesirable range. These guys are part-timers, not fully invested in their job. Today, one of the best refs from last night is behind a desk focused on something else, but it's not the blown call from last night. The league needs make these Zebras full-time. They need to live, breathe the rules of football, not being focused on dentistry or be a CPA or possibly a lawyer. The Saints won last night, so the refs didn't totally ruin the night for the black and gold, but of course we can't say the same in the NFC title game.
Better hope they're not working on your teeth after you said that.
My final say is an ode to Charles Barkley. Remember when the NBA Hall of Famer said, "I am not a role model"? He was essentially saying that kids need to find other role models besides professional athletes, like their parents. 26 years later, Barkley's words came into clear focus last week in Oakland with Antonio Brown. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL, but one of the worst examples of how a good teammate is supposed to act. Brown arrived in Oakland via a trade with the Steelers, and almost instantaneously, he was a headache for the franchise and for the fan base. Helmet gate, frostbite gate, shouting match gate, you name it, it happened once Brown got to Oakland. What hardly happened was Brown practicing with his teammates, or Brown getting along with management, aka the people that sign his check. So the Raiders punished him by canceling his $30 million in guaranteed money. Brown, like a kid that didn't get picked on the playground, picked up his ball and left for New England, where he joins the yearly Super Bowl favorite Patriots. It's a shame that Brown couldn't humble himself and fit in with the Raiders and his new teammates. Their professional sports are full of star players, and they all have one thing in common. If they want to have success, be a good teammate comes first. But being a good employee is a very close second. After wearing out his welcome in Pittsburgh and then Oakland, now he's in New England, where the clock is ticking on how long it takes Brown to start pointing fingers at the wrong people again, instead of himself. And a reminder that overtime is only a part of our Football on Fox 8 schedule throughout the season. We've got a full preview of the Rams on Wednesday night with game plan. Friday is time for the high school kids and Sean Vazan and Chris Hagan. Sunday is game day routine and Garland Gillen. Fox 8 Live tailgate at 10 a.m., kickoff at 3 p.m., 3:25. Wrap up the day with the final play at 10:30. Monday night is a review time with Deuce McAllister, and then we do it all over again as we do all season long. And that's going to be our show for tonight. For all of us here at Fox 8, thanks for watching. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Have a great night.
This has been Fox 8 Overtime, sponsored